when you're thinking about nuclear, there's actually two ends of the spectrum. So the first thing that was created was the atom bomb, which is a fission device, which, like I was saying, it takes heavy particles and atoms and breaks them into two.
Okay.
But the other end of the spectrum is you take a super light element and you slam it into another super light element and you combine them.
Oh, okay.
Now, the division creates quite a bit of energy, which is why there's the awesome destruction power of a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
But the fusion part, the other end of the spectrum of fusing two together, creates even more power. And that is referred to as an H-bomb. So the first one's referred to as an A-bomb, and the second one's referred to as an H-bomb. And the first one's referred to also as a nuclear weapon, and the second one's referred to as a thermonuclear weapon.
Right.
So we kind of talked about the two devices, the implosion and the gun type. And it's kind of like having two things in one, because you set off a conventional explosion that causes a nuclear explosion. But the thermonuclear weapon is actually like three weapons, because you have a conventional explosion that causes a fission explosion or chain reaction. And that creates so much pressure and energy that, if it directed in the right way, can cause fission. And then fission creates the massive explosion. I don't mean to get too complicated here, but
I get it.
this is not a simple thing. And the first thing required two things, and the second thing requires three things.
Right.
And with our newfound weapons, or as I think they were thinking of them at the time, like not just weapons, but like tools, we were trying to figure out all that we could do. It was almost like they thought everything was going to be nuclear at some point.
Yeah.
And they did a lot of testing.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Sorry. I know just from seeing a lot of pictures, seeing pictures in some like textbooks and then things online. I never got into researching a lot of it, but you would see, just huge, explosion clouds of what it can do.
Yeah, and there's a lot of old like film footage of either tests going off in the desert or out in the ocean, or there was a place called Bikini Atoll. It's part of the Marshall Islands out in the Pacific. And we did a ton of testing there. I want to say there was like 30 some or something like that explosions. And they were all different types. And we were so naive at the time. There was a bunch of, let's call them learning experiences or mishaps, where people maybe weren't using adequate or wearing adequate equipment to protect themselves. There was also some comments about how they thought in the beginning that the locals could stay on a nearby island. There were a lot of things that were done that we now look back at it and think probably should have been done a little differently.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's crazy that they wouldn't think they would have to totally evacuate those people.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they understood it.
Yeah. Yeah, true. I mean, I guess, once again, it's still in the very beginning, so it's still hard to like wrap your mind around it, because I think sometimes you think like with something that powerful,
Right.
it would have taken like, I don't know, longer. And even though it was years kind of to develop, that it would have, I don't know.
Well, they were still in the testing phase, and they had all of these like ambitions. They thought that that conventional weapons would just go away, and that everything would be nuclear now that we've unlocked this secret.
Yeah.
And they were talking about like artillery shells, like those great big shells that they shoot out of
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah.
howitzers and stuff,
yeah.
or the tank rounds or whatever. They thought all of those would be nuclear.
Oh man.
They actually created this small
Yeah.
nuclear device called the Davy Crockett.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Have you seen this thing?
Yeah.
It looks almost like one of those rocket, like shoulder mounted things, but it's slightly bigger.
Yeah.
And when it goes off, it's equivalent to 20 tons of TNT.
Yeah, that's insane.
I mean, imagine like a dump truck
Yeah.
full of TNT. and this is something that just like a handful of guys can just pump out into the field, set up,
Yeah.
let off the chain.
Yeah. And it's a nuclear bomb that that's